Good afternoon to you all. We're back with our round table in the second Symposium of Social Haptic Communication. The topic is Tactile Semiotics. We have two professors, two people very relevant to my studies, and I have the privilege to be always with them. Umberto Chiacari is the professor. He has a PhD in Sorbonne, Paris, doctor and master in OSPI, and he works with UNESCO and UMESP professor. He's the leader of the group Semiotics. And also the dear Professor Marcelo Furlim. He also has a trajectory very important in my academic studies. He was part of my evaluation in my bars. He knows the deeply my research. He's a doctor at USP and master's by Mackenzie. He's professor at UMESP, and he also teach in undergraduate and religion sciences. I'd like to thank you all very much for being here, and they are talking about tactile semiotics. Before giving them the floor, I'd like to talk that we, the GPICS researchers, we have talked about the tactile semiotics and how much is a necessary top for us to study, and we talk about the living body based on Ponty. It's a symbolic territory that touches not only a means but also the message, and we present this sensitive sensitive space of otherness based on reciprocity, ethics, and interaction on the social practice, and also the tactile, the haptic means from symbolism theory in the deaf and blindness, and also a new epistemology, and that's what we have also been doing in inclusion and accessibility with social haptics communication. Starting with these words, I give the floor to my masters, starting with Kiaki. So you have 20 minutes to present your considerations, and then we move to Professor Marcelo. Thank you very much. Good afternoon to you all. I was going to introduce myself, but Elaine has done this in a few minutes, in a few seconds, because my presentation is not very long, but I also like to do my audio description. I'm a white man, but green eyes, gray hair, and 168. I'm using a t-shirt and a white coat. I'm not going to say my age. I'd like to thank you for your invitation done by the Professor Elaine. I'm very honored to be here, where I used to be in conference around the world, and this moment is very special for us because it's a conference, international one, and a very special moment for us. I understand that I'd like to mention this because I believe and I trust in the semiotics as a science of the language. I'd like to salute Professor Adriana, is our one of our deans, and I'd like to salute also these girls and boys that are working with the translation. These are the one creators of signals as these symbols, and how fast they are. I was admiring them in the back of the room, how they are creating this so fast, this modality of language. I confess I was a bit jealous how they were creating the signs This is amazing. It's a noble job. So it's an honor to be part of this International Conference of Communication, Haptic communication, because this communication needs an adjective, but it's communication, right? And technology also, that's included in the topic, and also inclusion. Well, Eleni, Professor Eleni, have shown the body semiotics before, but I'd like to explain to you that semiotics is the science that study the multiple languages, every kind of language, every type of modality of language. We have verbal and non-verbal language. Sometimes you can say, oh, these are the two groups, but verbal language is the ones that use verbs. It could be vocal, written, or haptic. And if the language is all of this, it's not only verbal and non-verbal, it's also sound and touch and visual and as written language, and the non-verbal languages are all the other languages. And I can really tell you guys that there's no naive language. There's no pure language and lone language. It's a hybrid. In this path, we understand that semiotics is the one that understands how to study these languages. It's the science, what we call signos. Sign can be a very people think I'm talking about horoscope. Mine is Capricorn and Sagittarius. They're also what we call in Portuguese signo too, but actually something that represents something. So if I do a sign in sign language, for example, and I have this movement, these gestures, for example, when I'm talking about Libras, for example, these are signs, these are signos, are words that are trying to translate logic and a thought. So the efforts that we do to control and to manage those signs, so I'm talking signos, is not only one, but it's when we are explaining the concept of signo, of sign, there are actually many in the process. Is what we call the semiosis, is the action of a sign calling other, and they call each other, and they compound and name things, and how we interpret and how we understand is different. So we don't understand anyone. We do, because we are social and culturally established as a group, but the definition I prefer from semiotics, the simplest one and the clearest one, is the science of interpreting things. Things can be not a very good word, like journalists such as myself don't like these words, but things, coisa, is just like a train. That is a word that they use in Minas to say anything. So they say trem in Portuguese. It is anything, stuff, things. It can be anything. It's a very productive word for many meanings, and is something that represents anything. We call it thing. If, of course, affects the human mind, that's the main topic for us. Of course, we can talk about nature semiotics, but now we're talking about human communication. That is our main goal in this science. So communication depends on language. Of course, we all agree on that. So language is everything we use to communicate. It doesn't matter the modality and the type of communications, what we use to communicate. So semiotics study the languages and the signs. So it's always walking side by side with communication. we have a joke that is a twin sister of the communication. The ones that are very similar, those that are identical twins, it's that share the same gene because they cannot live one without the other. So there are many semiotics. I'm not going to talk about this theoretically today, but I think that what I study in my research field, and that is something that I think it connects to what I've seen today here in this conference, is what we talk about phenomenology. And we have this important thinker and author from the US that lived in the 19th century and died in the beginning of the 20th century, called, but he leaves his work, so he's still alive in his work. They asked him, why do you write books? And he said, because I don't want to die. So his child is under Spurs, and we have the Paris Semiotics, if you guys have heard, because this semiotics is phenomenological. So we try, with this theory, try to understand the signs, such as manifestations of phenomena. So a phenomena is everything that notices the perception in the mind. So it touches our perception in our minds, and it's something we call phenomena. Then we move into the haptic communication and the relationship with Peirce's theory. How can they be connected? So the tactile semiotics, as Eleni introduced in the beginning, it's a language, it's a process of communication, not only for deaf and blind, but for everybody. So the touch is a channel, is a means of it's a mean of communication and producing meaning in this perceptive experience and phenomenological experience through the touch. So if we think about this dimension, about the communication through the haptic channel, it's a exchange of messages, and this is a basic rule that for communication. What is communication? If we're studying the information theory and communication theory, we have Shanna that used to explain information through the formula that we have an emissary, we have a means, and the message, and the receptor, and that's simple, and we cannot stop the explanation right there, because I was talking about the interpreters, the sign language ones here, but everybody is an interpreter through the semiotics perspective, because we are interpreting and understanding things all the time. So it's not the message and the receptor, because as I receive a message, I'm also a broadcaster. I'm also someone that's producing meanings, and we connect the ideas and the what we want to say. So the touch and the meanings that we share through touch, as I'm talking about Peirce's perception of phenomenology. So it's touch, is texture. So I'm looking at Eleni, and if I'm telling something wrong, please help me. So it's pressure, it's temperature, it's the distance between the two bodies, and I would even go beyond, because the smell also brings up the information. Is not tactile, but it affects to the communication and the understanding. So these styles of communication, they are in personal context, not only about deaf and blind, but it is within everybody, in the hug and the handshaking and in cuddling. This is tactile communication among ourselves. As I saw the topic of technology, here I tried to explain something.
So it exists as an interface. The screens, they do have an interface, the virtual reality, augmented virtual reality, the movement of the cell phone. Those are tactile informations. But what I really want to bring to you, and Professor Elaine said a little bit about this at the beginning, is that this tactile communication, the thing that is most important for me is the affection, affection of affect and to touch too, in a different way. There is the presence of the alterity, which is the field of the sensorial contact as a sign of the incarnated experience and the body as the mean of signification. I think that's super important. And other thing that we do have to think about is that we can't separate the body from the mind. The body, our mind, is a territory of communication. Our body is a territory of thought. It's a territory of logic. Our body is a territory of attitude. And when we know what is the alterity and the presence of the other, is important when we think about touch. In the Semiotics of Peirce, when he talks of the phenomena, there are three categories. They can come together. One can be more important than the other, but those categories are quality and feeling, the first one. The other is reaction, fact, and experience. And the third is mediation of the loss and the thought. That's when the sign shows itself in his momentarily fullness. This first quality he called three qualities. This first quality is when the touch involves sensitive qualities. Today I heard about professor from Finland, Professor Russ said, I want to know about the color, how it is. So you have heat, texture, vibration, smoothness, and that's a pure instant of the feeling that is just before reflection, that happens just before reflection. So I brought some examples that we already lived in different congress, the touch being smoother or stronger or tighter. Our thought is too quick. So before having a full reflection, and that's where the tactile language come along, is this action reaction duplicity and the experiences. That's the moment when we start to try to understand what it is, that thing that we want to significate. It's the moment of the physical touch and the material resistance. The touch is the meeting of two bodies that affects themselves mutually. And that's where the presence and the difference meet. That's when we understand that there is a different person there, and we break some of our beliefs and change for other kinds of beliefs. The haptical sign It manifests itself as an indicator. It points to a concrete reality, to a palpable existence, and just after that, and I think that's where the sign language comes to. When this touch is interpreted, for instance, a gesture of sweetness, comfort, it goes to the level of symbolic. It transforms into a symbol or a sign that is interpreted culturally. So in Percy's understanding, oh, I'm sorry, my time is running out, but I'll try to go quickly. Is something that is conventioned, is arbitrary, and the gesture, the touch is something different because it becomes learning. It becomes something that has to be taught. So finishing because my time is up. I was discreet. Elaine is saying I was discreet, but yeah, you were. So um, there are three moments that we can think about this tactile communication. The pure tactile feeling, this first moment of quality, texture, color, the direct relationship between corpses, and the interpretation. So to finish, I'm going to skip a little bit. No, I won't skip. I'm sorry. I won't skip because it's important to say something. It's sad that Professor Ayrton is not here because it's his field of work, but it's important also to talk about the ethics of the body. I was observing you doing the translations, the interpretations, the touch, and that's beautiful. It's some interesting ethic there. It's respectful, and I think that if we don't understand authority, if we don't have as the final goal all our studies and projects and everything that we do, there is one goal, one final goal, which is the human being and the ways of living. There are no other way for that. There's only one way, which is the ethic way, as our attitude, as something that is important to me and that it's different. If I do that, then my life is done. So I really want to thank you guys for this moment. I hope that I was able to bring some things about the ethics, semiotics, and the interpretation of touch is something super important. And that's it. Thanks again, Elaine. Thank you. Thank you, Professor Roberto. It was a really nice contribution. You were talking about the smell as a non-tactile receptor. There is a researcher, an anthropologist that we've been reading, which is David Liberton, French. We've been with him 2 weeks ago in Strasbourg. And when he says that the tact is the whole body, because the whole body feels and the whole body is touch. So when you talked about the smell, about sniffing something, when you breathe the air touches the walls of your nose. No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Yeah, that it wasn't what I was going to say, but yeah, breathing, uh, smelling is tact too. It's hearing reaction and the hearing too. Yes, because the sound touches the tympanus and the eating too when we feel the taste of things. It's also tactile. So the perception of Le Breton is the whole body is tact, because the whole body is touched in a way, the whole body feels in a way. Professor, thank you. So now my other master, Professor Marcelo Pulim, please. Oh, she started the timer, so please. Good afternoon, I'm Professor Marcelo. I'm a white male with white hair, 179 meters of height. I'm wearing a beige t-shirt. It's good to be with you here in this afternoon. The event is almost over, but it's a super important subject. We heard Professor Roberto now talking about this, the signs in this movement. All signs in movement, I think it's the summary of his speech in this semiotics. But in this meeting, what is the big, larger movement is from the sign to the body. From the signs we have in the society, the conventional systems, to the body. And then Professor Elaine was talking about the researches that talk about semiotics, tactile semiotics. And you can see this interesting movement that Professor Roberto brings of a body that is lived, that feels. And I also bring another thing that comes from education, right, Professor Adriana? Let's take it to education too, of a body that I'm going to say that it is pronounced. Where does this image of a pronounced body comes? Comes from an educational author that right now everyone is talking about, or it's fashion right now, it's trending. Paulo Freire is a Brazilian educator, but is known from several made-up phrases, just like Clarice Lispector, Cora Coralina. They are all poets, Hannah Arendt. And Paulo Freire, there is one phrase in chapter 3 of Pedagogy of the Oppressed. Sometimes people just don't pay attention to that. But it has all to do with this theme, this subject, which is the pronounce of the world. And that's super strong. Pronounce of the world. And I will say the pronounce of the body, making this connection with the social haptic communication. And what does he bring us as a provocation? Is the condition of dialogicity. It's a dialogue, a powerful dialogue. This relation between humans and also with the means, with everything around it. And in this relation, we have the word, we have the, if we think about the human being without the word, without signs, it's not a human. It feels, it interprets for different signs, different means. But right now we are going to look only to the signs, the words. When we think about it, there are two important dimensions. The first one is the reflection in the thought that becomes action. This dimension of dialogicity, when the thought is transformed in action, we have a match. We have a match. It's a transformation. It's a semiosis. Is the praxis, it's a meaningful practice. So This pronounce of the world is not just to exercise a language. It is to feel the language. And when this dialogicity, the thought and action are orchestrated, we have what we call inclusion. This word inclusion is just worn out, but then I'm going to change to use the word ethic, which is an act of dignity, of justice. Insert or include is not just to aggregate to the group, but is to favor dignity. That's what ethics for. When people are invited to feel the world through other signs, through social haptic communication, for instance, that's the biggest act of justice, dignity, and beauty that we can use. And this is a field that in a few years was invisible. There was a kind of invisibility through people to deafblind people. So Professor Roberto didn't talk to me before prior to this, but I think our speech are converging to the same path. In the 90s, I was studying about that, still reading structuralism here at Methodist University. That's when I learned about it in that building that we can see from the window here. And how does these signs are moved? Then we have the question that the signs are corporeal. They are incarnated. Professor Roberto said about that. There is a concrete part of this system that has its own semantics, its syntax. And how does we change a phrase in gestures? That's super interesting to think about. Because I think that the first semiosis is this relation of the sign that becomes body. The second semiosis is the interaction with the world. And the apex of this is the pronouns of the world. Now using Paulo Freire's phrase, the pronouns of the world allows the existence of the human, or a human existence. And pronouns of the world, it's also a part of the body, like the vocal cords. To pronounce the world is to use the body, use our speech, our voice, to use our hands, to use all of our senses. So this sign, this complete sign, is authentic when we think about Paulo Freire's language. It's corporeal, it's synesthetic, and it's different than other kinds of sign that are not authentic. The sign that doesn't have sense, it's called sacrifice, because it doesn't have any sense. It's lost, it's degenerated. So this pronounced world, this pronounced body, is the fusion of pronounced people. I for years studied phonetics in English, and I didn't have a clue of all this beauty and the everything that the body can do, about the tactile aspect, about how the body can communicate in different ways, how the body can transform the conventional sign, the corporeal sign. And Professor Roberto also said about that, look at the exercise of ethics in times where the body is invaded. What an interesting answer, the respect of entering the territory of the body of the other.
Okay, then this symposium in Paulo Freire's reading is and his understanding is the meetings of people, men and women, mediated by the pronounced world of a body pronounced, of a body spoken. In Paulo Freire's speech is a existential need. In the contemporary, we are still exercising what is inclusion. So a word can maybe change and a concept can be improved, but effectively, what is that? What is the integration? It's a solidarity. Solidarity is an exercise of ethics. So when Professor Eleni was mentioning before about this search for sensitive epistemology, it makes a lot of sense. So this communication means through the skin is concrete and is real, and it promotes real inclusion. In technical terms, how do we change haptic movement into language? I have no idea how to do that. I have zero motor skills. I don't even drive, so I could not do this interpretation. What is the semantics? What is the syntax? What is the predicative verb of that? So how do we translate the adjectives if there's a long period with composed periods? Remember this at school. How does it become gesture? So it looks like it's a small sentence. Is that right? So this transformation into body is like a pronounced, a spoken body. I have no idea how this happens. So ending my speech, we are at this moment building a new culture, a semiotic, bodily semiosis, corporal semiotics through linguistic systems that Professor Eleni presented, and thanks to Professor Adriana, we were in her process, in her exam to enter here. Yeah, they let you in, right? Yes, through the masters. And Eleni says, yeah, that's all their fault. So back then, the news of this topic, we were like, is this enough for research? And now we're here in the second symposium, and we need to grow even more the reach of this topic in the ethics. So concluding this roundtable, look at the richness of the signs that nowadays is not enough only to get to know the signs, but how they become an indication of how we exist as humans. So this semiotics is humanitarian. Either we move to that or it's going to be our end. Our planet is screaming, is moaning. So they ask on the internet, like a joke, they say, why hurricanes have names? Jessica, Katrina, Melissa, the names of hurricanes. And why? I want to know, Elaine said, and I was like, yeah, I also don't know. So it can be prejudicial, right? It's because you're not married, that's why you don't know, the other professor said. So the environmental crisis, it's something to show the importance of this world that demands interpretations from all of us through areas that are connected. We have here with us education, communication, linguistics, sociology, philosophy. Everything is here in this moment at this symposium for the understanding of this phenomenon. So I hope we can build this the construction of a tactile semiotics to create this the existence and the possibility of the human existence for those who have the rights to be among us as humanity. That's that. Did I respect my time? Yeah, you did. Thank you. They're clapping, and Elaine is saying, very good, it's very good. Listen to you. Every time I listen to him, I feel like I'm in a class because his knowledge is so particular, special. So I'd like to thank you for your considerations. I'd like to open our table for one question. Who would like to ask something? Adriana is saying, I don't know if it's a question or more of a comment. It's something for us to reflect on what the two of them presented as this living body, the existential dimension of that. I was reflecting with you too, what is lived and what's pronounced, what is spoken, and the continuum between the two of them. Because I think maybe that's the trajectory that we are building here, the lived body through the spoken body. This is the path to build this dynamic of creativity that we have here, in which every person needs to be attended in their particularities. So interpreters, how to understand this speech, this subjective person being. So this path is very beautiful, and I think this is the research path that we as scientists need to move towards. And I don't know if this language it's going to behave as a line linearly. So that's the challenge that we have to think about. Yesterday when we were doing the open challenge, we were talking this challenge, how big it is, and this is exactly because there are many different people and bodies pronouncing themselves, speaking for themselves, and needing to build this manifestation, but also needing interpreters. So it's a great work, a big work to be done, and we need people working on that. Elaine is saying, okay, thank you, Professor Diana. Now we are concluding this round table, and we're going to be back for our closing at 6:30. So we are going to complete those 2 days of learning. So 6:30 we're going to thank you all for your participation.